hurricane, a tidal wave. Essence perfect, life looks brilliant, give me more of this. I'm out of control, about to blow, and I've been caught in the undertow. So toxic, but I can't get enough. You're burying me, burying me. Yeah, you're burying me, burying me. You've got me hypnotized, push me out of myself. You've got me hypnotized. Whoa, I can see, I can hear, going crazy by the light. It's got me hypnotized. You've got me hypnotized. Get you out of my hand again.
Now, 4 great ways to lose weight with Thrifty New Plan.
Is there water in your hairspray? There shouldn't be. Water takes the shape out of your hairdo. You need the water-free hairspray. Self-styling Adorn. Adorn's water-free formula puts shape into your hair and keeps it there. Actually holds up to twice as long. So put shape into your hairdo and keep it there with the water-free hairspray, Self-Styling Adorn.
Well, how do you do, sir? I understand this is your first taste of Carling's Black Label beer.
Yes.
And, sir, what is your reaction?
Well, I like it.
Good. Perhaps you can be more specific. How would you describe the flavor?
I like it.
Good. Light?
Yeah.
Dry?
Yeah.
And what else?
I like it.
Good. And the quality of Black Label?
Oh, I like it.
Good. Would you say it was high quality?
Yeah.
Or top quality?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's premium quality at the popular price.
I like that, too.
Good. And now, sir, see all those people out there?
Where?
You, sir, have been co-starring on TV with everybody's favorite Carling's Black Label beer.
Oh, you don't say.
Mabel, Black Label.
Hi, Mabel.
Dark, cold world out there. There's a time to live and a time for a man to die. There are places for dead men in the earth and the sky. Don't you venture too far now, 'cause you can't come back from the place where the good guys always dress in black. When you go to the old saloon at the dead South End, gonna find you a man there wants to be your friend. If you dare to deny his wish, you'll be dead by dawn. So give him a drink and a smile and then move right on. Rednecks with white faces, don't go putting on down. Rednecks with white faces, they ain't no rodeo clowns.
And boom, just like that, it's Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's party time with these guys right here. We're the Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson, one half of that team, and the man beside me, you know how to do this, people. He's the man with the angelic voice, Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes, happy Thursday, brother. How are you doing?
Happy Thursday to you, Munson. I'm doing absolutely great. I'm ready for this podcast tonight, and I know that you have also been having an awesome time preparing for this one. You and I have been texting up a storm talking already before this podcast even starts because of the great subject matter.
Oh, this is going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm very much looking forward to it. We're going to get started on that very momentarily here, Pop Smokes. But I do want to say, if you are watching this on repeat, make sure that whether you're on the Video Bros Network or on our local establishment, that you go subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on that notification bell so you know anytime we have new material. And look who's in the house. It's our Twitch champion of the world, BDJ. Here we go for another trip through. You bet, brother. We're going to have some fun with this one. We don't even have to go very far for this one because this one's in our neck of the woods. This time around, we're going to Vancouver, British Columbia, Pop Smokes. This one was on your list. This was one you mentioned that you grew up with and kind of got you on your start into professional wrestling, and I want to talk about that momentarily. But yeah, just kind of interesting that we picked this one because of the fact that the WWE announced they're going to bring one of their big events, the Survivor Series War Games, over to Vancouver. So we're like, you know what? Shit, let's educate people a little bit and educate ourselves a little bit as well, too, about the history of professional wrestling in the Vancouver territory. So Bob Smokes, why don't you lay the scene a little bit about the Vancouver territory and a little bit, again, about the personal touch for this one and yourself on your journey to being a pro wrestling fan.
For sure. Talking about Vancouver, it's a relatively recent city in the sort of history of North America. It didn't start getting developed as a city until the late 1800s kind of thing. So they didn't start throwing matches publicly there until something like 1904. And the city is on the west coast there, so it's not like we talked about with Kansas City, which is kind of in the middle of a lot of space. It's a little bit like that for Vancouver too, but it's on that west coast. It's got that pipeline of people that travel back and forth up and down from California through Oregon and Washington to Vancouver. So it really it's on the tour, so to speak, for all the old touring territories wrestlers that would make a west coast swing, maybe even out to Hawaii, but certainly down to Washington, Oregon, and California. You would hit Vancouver on that trip.
Oh, for sure. And there's a lot to unfold when it comes to this territory. But before we start even unpackaging anything, again, this was the first show that you watched when you were younger? This was what got you into pro wrestling? Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I want to say age sort of 4 to 6 or 7, we got this on TV from where we lived in Manitoba. And there's a reason for that, because the TV station that carried this show, All Star Wrestling, was called BCTV. It's the provincial main TV company, but it is a subsidiary of CTV, Canadian Television Company, not the federally run CBC, but CTV, a private company. But it has shows, it has reach all the way across this large nation. So when they find TV shows from local and provincial television markets, they might pick that to show on some of the slower time slots, Saturday afternoons, Sunday afternoons, that kind of thing. CTV can pick up that content for cheap, and it's also Canadian content. For our American viewers, you might not know, but in Canada, we're kind of regulated to show a certain amount of Canadian content to keep the sort of Canadian culture vibrant, instead of showing all American and British TV shows and movies. So there was that Canadian content as well. We got this program at 6 o'clock on Saturday afternoons, and this is what these are my first memories of wrestling, was watching All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver with all the crazy characters they had on there. It was quite a baffling experience to me as a kid, but as you can see, I took to it like a fish to water, and I've been going hard ever since.
You know, and I understand why, too, because, again, I had never actually watched anything from this territory prior to this. And I started doing this deep dive. You sent me some links over on YouTube. So, you know, I recommend anybody go check it out, what is available. I wish more of the tape library was available, or at least more cleaned up, too, because, I mean, there's some pretty pretty old looking videotapes and stuff that are available. But, you know, much appreciation to those who have managed to do what they can to restore that history and make it available to us as fans. So a lot of the stuff kind of in the 1983 era, there's a lot of those episodes of All-Star Wrestling that are available there. And I start watching along, and what a lot of fun. And not even like, I mean, some of the matches, you had some pretty good quality matchups, some really, really good finishes. I know I got excited and sent you that one where John Tenta was involved. And I said that the finisher he used, the submission he used, I'd like to see a modern day bigger boy bring that move back. That move looked fantastic.
Very much so. And remember, a guy like Tenta probably hadn't even been in wrestling all that long. He had been doing sumo and other kinds of judo and stuff, entering professional wrestling. And for a guy that size and everything, it's just a match made in heaven.
Oh yeah, and it was brilliant to watch. That's what we got from BDJ. I don't know how to respond. I don't know what I got on that for BDJ. Sorry, man. But anyway, yeah, John Tenta was. I mean, he was a beast. But there was a lot of crazy. Like we were talking about some of the crazy characters and stuff like that too. And interestingly enough, we had a lot of guys like the bigger names of, say, Roddy Piper, Rick Rude, and stuff like that worked in this territory prior to their kind of rise in fame and everything like that. So they did grace this great place. But there was a lot of ones that maybe I wasn't quite as familiar with prior to doing this particular deep dive. And when you get into these ones that are on YouTube, right away you're going to find that there was a lot of push for the Flowers brothers, or in particular Diamond Timothy Flowers. Happens to be, as you said, the network television champion, or the main champion, I guess, that's outside of I guess they was still run under the NWA banner until 85, I believe. So during the 83 time, they were still part of the NWA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. They had been in since, I guess we started talking about the ancient history, the 1904 kind of time of Vancouver wrestling. But it wasn't until 1962, I think, that the All-Star Wrestling TV program started, still fairly early in the life of television shows. And then it was the famous ownership group, Gene Kiniski, Sandor Kovacs, and Don Owen from Portland, that kind of were the powerhouse owners through the 60s, 70s, and very early 80s, that brought it up to its kind of peak period that everybody likes to talk about, that sort of mid 60s to late 70s, early 80s kind of thing, where it really had its high points and all that. And they had already had world champions wrestling there, even in the days before that ownership group, before the 60s. I mean, they had in the 20s some of the wrestlers I like to call the old gods of wrestling, the George Hackenschmidt, Joe Stetcher, Carl Gotch, and some of the ancient, excellent old shooters and hookers, so to speak, the guys that would get their hooks in you and your match would be over. This is back at a time when pro wrestling was not so much looking like it is today. It was much more of a fusion between pro wrestling with choreographed or worked finishes, and a combination of that and MMA fighting, what we would call today.
Yeah, again, and it's more of what appeals to us. I think that's why, we can sit down with something like Bloodsport and enjoy it so much. I'd appreciate it. But, this was, like, you talk about the names behind the original ownership of the Vancouver territory, and then that switching over to Al Tomko in 1977, I believe, even right at the start of 1977. Now, as I'm doing this deep dive on YouTube, Pop Smokes, I start coming across a lot of people, especially in the comment section and all across the internet, that were fans of this entire territory. They grew up on it just like you did and everything like that, but ones that go quite a ways back too. And there is a very heated argument amongst the fans of this territory between what they like and what they don't like. And I'm talking about the era. that they like. There is a lot of fans that are completely 100% behind the original ownership of this company. And as far as they're concerned, Al Tomko did everything to destroy the territory of Vancouver. There's a lot of negatives against Al Tomko and what he did with the company. Yet a lot of what we're going to be talking about and what we have available there on YouTube right now is from the Al Tomko era. And I had a lot of fun watching it myself personally. So I want to know, from someone who grew up on it, what are you familiar with this rivalry between the two sides? What can you enlighten us with on that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of what I watched was Al Tomko era as well. Whether he was an owner yet at that time, he was still a big player in Pacific Northwest wrestling there. But it's kind of interesting, yeah, that Gene Kiniski, everybody knows Canada's greatest athlete and all the rest of it, multi-time NWA champion from the past. He was very, very serious as a wrestler and very, very serious about keeping the integrity of the business, and therefore going to be very serious about being a promoter as well. And he was a guy that liked to work in tandem with surrounding promotions in order to share talent, in order to help each other up, prop each other up. Everybody makes some money together as long as there's a mutual respect. Kiniski had that respect with Don Owen down in Portland. If we go deep into the history, we'll find that Washington State and Seattle didn't seem to like wrestling too much. They had a mayor that was constantly writing articles for the newspaper about how wrestling was fixed and it was a scam and it was a cheat to the fans and everything. And then he actually got pro wrestling banned in Seattle for a bit. So, but at any rate, Don Owen was down in Portland, Kiniski up in Vancouver, and they wanted to run a good business, sharing with each other, with talent and all that stuff. Kiniski had a respect and good working relationship with Stu Hart over in Calgary. You can see by some of the rosters, Munson, that they shared some talent there. Vancouver also got the Archie Goldies and the Bad News Allens and those kinds of guys out there for shots all the time, and vice versa. Why not, right? They're not competing. Their cities are many miles apart, so they can make money together and share talent. But Al Tomko, once he took the reins, he bought out Kiniski's share in the company because Kiniski was becoming disillusioned with Tomko's vision. And Tomko, he knew that he was going to push himself as a wrestler, as the company's top star, which wasn't going to turn out well in anybody's mind. I'm not here to rain on Al Tomko's parade, but it's pretty well agreed upon that Tomko was not a handsome man, not a skilled wrestler, didn't have an aura, wasn't a particularly good talker, wasn't talented in the business of wrestling. So him booking himself to be the top star wasn't going to turn out to be such a great idea. And as we saw, it was only 5-7 years that it lasted under his reign before eventually they ran out of gas.
Yeah, or was it a bit longer than that, actually, if I'm not mistaken? I thought it was 89 that they shut the doors. 1989.
Maybe that's right. Yeah, maybe that's
over
right.
in 77. So he had a little bit of a run there, but I think a lot of people talk about the decline really coming around the 1985 area and stuff like that. So, I mean, I could see it. Again, I've watched some of Tomko's matches now. I watched some on here as well. Tomko, compared to a lot of the people on here, does not stand out whatsoever. I saw one guy in the comments saying that the problem is that Al Tomko he's booking himself as a top heel in the company, and yet the local bus driver probably has more of a scary aura than what Al Tomko does. And I get it. I get the argument and stuff. So I can see, but as you've talked about before with a lot of these territories, it was more of a trust thing. It's who could you trust? And the bookers trusted themselves not to run off with any belts or to screw them on, certain aspects of the business and everything like that too. So that would have been Al Tomko's reasoning, I suppose, for that. And then also for the reasoning for him pushing his two sons in the company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of something that's plagued the wrestling business ever since this time, is that once the cat came out of the bag and people started to learn more about the inside doings of the wrestling business, a lot more amateur promoters with a couple bucks in their bank accounts started throwing shows and saying, oh, well, I can throw this and I'm actually in charge of what happens. Well, I'll make myself a star. I mean, we've got one of them going right now, AEW. That's almost exactly what that is. The wrestlers do their own creative. They book a lot of their own matches. The ones that have pull in the company, of course, right? There's a number of them that are vice presidents and stuff like that. So it's not a good idea. It's also known as a conflict of interest. It's nothing illegal about it. It's just a bad idea because nobody can be completely objective about their own self and their own booking in a wrestling company. So same thing with Al Tomko. He had his main heel faction, his main event heel faction known as Tomko's Army.
Yeah.
And he just wore the kind of camouflage army jacket and the sort of Fidel Castro cap. Yeah, the kind of stuff you could just buy at the army surplus store downtown, and that was his whole gimmick. And it was just kind of like, well, okay, I guess that's what we got then. And yeah, like you say, the comments are almost universally derisive of this time and of Tomko and his attempt to get himself over at his own wrestling company. He ended up dragging a bunch of other people down with him, and like you say, by 85 or something, which would have been 6-7 years into his tenure there were, I'm sure he was having a lot of trouble booking any of those good wrestlers that had integrity for the business.
Well, and that's when he pulled the Vancouver territory from the National Wrestling Alliance. So in 1985, Al Tomko decided to pull out of the NWA and formed his own new one known as the UWA, and was trying to do his own governing body, which again, a lot of people will account to being one of the biggest mistakes in that particular territory, was deciding to kind of work up against the National Wrestling Alliance, who would have been able to have the access to the big stars and bringing in the real world champion and all these kind of things to the territory, something that Tomko would not be able to repeat once starting his own.
And did Tomko pull out of the NWA, or was he about to be ousted from the NWA? Is probably a fair question.
That
if
is
they weren't, yeah, if they weren't drawing and they weren't keeping their end of the bargain up by having a nice, tidy, money-making promotion, the NWA doesn't want them as a member either. I can't say this for sure. This is only speculation, but I have the feeling that they probably weren't too interested in Tomko's version of the company by that time either.
For sure. I would love to know if anybody out there watching this on replay or anything like that happened to live in that time or worked in around that time. We know some people still kicking around in the business that have worked that territory, Papa Spokes. And one interesting name that made his way into that business that we found out about, didn't know he made his start in All-Star Wrestling out of Vancouver, is a young 16-year-old heel, Mauro Ranallo, of all people.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I really didn't. I mean, Mauro Ranallo, I've always known him as an announcer. I've always thought he was fantastic. I knew he had a long career behind professional wrestling and a deep knowledge of it. Holy shit, I did not know that he's been bumping and grinding since 16 years old in this business. And I have that much more respect for him now after hearing this.
Oh, so much so. I've never known that fact either until we started doing research for this show, and how interesting that was. And it was, I guess he had been hanging around and doing photography and making himself useful around the shows. And yeah. And finally, he kind of got hired by Al Tomko, who was starting that UWA sanctioning body for the All-Star Wrestling Company, and then he kind of had Mauro Ranallo, this brash, mouthy 16-year-old kid, he was going to be watching All-Star Wrestling and making a report about it. And this report was going to be submitted to the UWA. It was all part of some angle for the future, which I don't think ever turned out. But those pictures of Mauro Ranallo he's got the long mullet in the back and the sides are shaved and the front's all spiked up and everything. He looks like a young Paulie Dangerously a little bit. That's who I thought of immediately. Sharp collar of a shirt turned up and everything like that. Absolutely hilarious.
I swear we got to clip this moment in the show and tag Mauro Ranallo in it just for a hope that he sees this. We did a deep dive on his career, and kudos to him. This was a lot of fun to hear him in this way and everything too. And at 16, I mean, you could tell why they had an interest in him even at 16 years old. The guy can talk. The guy can talk incredibly well and so well spoken for a 16-year-old.
For sure. And all these kind of child prodigies that joined the business as teenagers, both wrestlers like Terry Gordy and Bobby Eaton and some of those guys, and Lord Regal, that started their careers at 15 and 16 in the ring. Take a look at some of the other managers and other kind of non-wrestling type guys, such as Paulie Dangerously, Jim Cornette, Mauro Ranallo, guys that got into it were so completely immersed in the whole thing by age 15, 16 kind of thing. You know that their future is probably going to be bright because these young guys are in with a decent company, surrounded by talent, and just absorbing everything like a sponge. So exciting to think of, and that's awesome about Mauro Ranallo. What a good and skilled commentator he turned out to be. Yeah, no shit. He's been soaking it in at live shows for a long time.
Yeah, he really has, and it's incredible. So kudos to that. I want to talk about some of these names that popped up during this, because there's a lot that you and I have either covered here on Ring Respect Radio at some point in time, or have talked about in depth. Again, the Sheepherders. I mean, we can't go wrong with knowing that the Sheepherders are there. You sent me a promo in there as well too. Anyone who doesn't know, your love for the Bushwhackers will completely be blown out of the water when you go and look up the Sheepherders and realize that those guys that were licking children's heads were a little bit on the crazy side once upon a time, and their crazy was at times outmatched on the promo side of things, because a young Roddy Piper graced this territory, and talk about one sadistic nutcase of a human being, man. Those promos that Piper was doing, even back then, absolutely mind-blowing.
Couldn't agree with you more. And God, the skill.
Of course you do.
The skill that he hit the mic with was so good. And you talk about skill. This isn't a guy workshopping things and looking for buzzwords and keywords. You can see those few in some of those YouTube playlists. He's completely off the cuff. He talks for 3 minutes straight, very, very quickly, and he's calling out his opponent, and the jokes and the one-liners and the insults. And then some of that stuff is just, I don't even know what that meant, but it sounds cool. And he's delivering it with such intensity that it just absolutely works. You could see the old Ron Morier, the announcer there, my favorite announcer from when I was a kid, the nice old man. He's going to be in his 70s there months a day. He's such a nice old man. You can see him. He's just blown away by this young talent, Piper. Wow. Piper finishes a 3-minute promo, walks away sweating and everything, and the announcer's just, he says it after one of those, I know that when the crew leaves their spots and comes and forms a circle around here to listen, you know that there's something special going on. That's exactly what they just did for this Roddy Piper promo. Just so awesome to hear everybody just thought, man, what's this guy going to do in the wrestling business in the future?
Yeah. Well, and then just looking back and like Roddy Piper, far from the biggest fighter in professional wrestling, especially at that point in time, he was not the best shaped guy. He was not the biggest guy by any means, but he talked like the craziest, toughest son of a bitch that was on the planet, and you believed him. You believed this guy was crazy enough to go walk into there against the biggest, toughest SOB you've ever seen in your life, and he'd give him a fight. And this is what I think that modern wrestlers, the younger wrestlers, could really learn from, is that what you don't make up for in size inside the professional ring, make up for in believability. Make us believe that you're going to kick the shit out of your opponent, because you know what? It can be believable. You know, on a modern take, like someone like Janai Kai, the way she sells inside of a ring and those facials make her feel more dangerous and bigger than she actually is. And that's exactly what Piper was just excellent at, was making you believe that he was the biggest, toughest guy in the fight. And the way he would stare guys down, and just that snicker, that rude snicker on his face, when he would look at them and he would come up with those snappy comebacks on them. And oh, it was just absolutely brilliant the way he played into everything that was said towards him. Every insult that was flung at him, he had a good retaliation comeback for it, and everything that made sense. Didn't really bury his opponent, but at the same time didn't bury himself in the process either. I loved it. I loved Roddy Piper in these, and a lot of the promos. Like, the craziest one, everyone should go watch this one, is when he just bottles himself right in the face. Like he wants to prove to the sheep herders that he can hang and that he's as crazy as they are, and he just takes a beer bottle and smashes it across his damn head, and that crimson mask coming down, and he doesn't even flinch the whole time. Those eyes are looking right at the camera as that blood is trickling down his face. And I'm like, man, I am afraid right now, and this is rewinding all the way back to 1983 at the moment, as we say hello to Astrid coming up. Join us in the house. How are you doing, Astrid? Just also want to mention before we'll hold that thought for a moment, Papa Smokes, you and I might not be the most intoxicated people on screen tonight in OLE, because happy birthday to Kimmy Sokol, who is celebrating her 23rd birthday today, and I know has maybe been having one or two as she's watching ROH, getting ready to review it right after our show here, so stay tuned for that level of fun coming up. So yeah, there you go. Cheers from the Video Bros. But yeah, going back to like the promos there, Papa Smokes, like Roddy Piper in his time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The very ones you're talking about, some of those ones from Vancouver TV tapings, and there's only a small amount of fans you see in there in that TV studio. There's a set of bleachers on one side of the ring. That's pretty much it. Across from the hard cam, probably 4 rows. So there's only probably 50 people in there max kind of thing. It's only a TV taping. But Piper sounds like it's almost like the rhythm is like one of those evangelists, because he'll say like, and boy, I'm going to come for you in the match this weekend. And then and then I'm going to do this. And they all cheer again. And then I'm going to do this. He's got them eating out of the palm of his hand. They're laughing at his jokes. They're pumped up by his energy and his conviction, the conviction in his words and all that stuff. He's just controlling the crowd so well. And it's kind of neat to see, like, we always talk about how wrestlers nowadays don't really do enough research into the old greatness from the past. But look who does. Who's the best on the mic nowadays? Maxwell Friedman. And who does Maxwell Friedman go to when he needs inspiration for a good promo? Roddy Piper, absolutely. He makes no mistake of that. Not that he needs to tell us, really. You can absolutely tell who he loves, but so awesome. And Piper, one of the guys that really carried that company on his back for a little bit. Everywhere he went, he did that for a while until WWF, of course, saw his greatness. And look what happened there, straight to the main event against Hulk Hogan.
Sure was. As we're saying hello to Chris Faithful joining us from the house. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Say grew up
All right.
NBC loved All-Star. Yeah, awesome. And also saying that now Auntie Collins is popping a couple of ice into her wine, getting ready for that honor ramble. Yes, she is, but she's going to have a lot of catching up to do if she wants to catch up to birthday girl Kimmy Sokol. But yeah, those promos were great. I want to talk about another man. Like, this is somebody I wasn't familiar with, Pop Smokes, that I came across is Moose Morowski. I had said to you at one of the comments that he made during one of his matchups there, where he tells the audience while he's beating on his opponent, I will make him suffer longer just for you, or something along those lines. And I'm like, damn, I love that. I love that just devilish heel attitude. Like, I'm not going to squash this guy. I could squash this guy, but I'm going to hurt him mercifully in front of all of you because you like this guy. I love that. That is some good, nasty, good old-fashioned heel work right there. Oh, it was so good to see this dude.
And working the crowd and working with the crowd. That's pure gold. I say the crowd, it's a small TV taping, but you know they were doing that in those house shows too. That's another thing that I like about the All-Star Wrestling show that I wanted to make sure to mention. Did you notice, well, I'm sure you did, watching those full episodes, is that in order to push the angles along, they would often have a wrestler and or a manager come out to ringside, talk to Ron Morier with the microphone at the side of the ring, but then they would watch a match. And the heel or the babyface, whichever the guest wrestler was, would kind of commentate on the match. They'd say, okay, this is what happened this past weekend in Aberdeen, Washington, or in Oregon, or in wherever their house shows or their spot shows were. It would show a match which furthered along one of the angles. So in order to get what happened in that house show to further the angle for the TV audience, it would show the footage from that show, and the wrestler and the commentator would talk about it and talk about the action. I thought that was really quite interesting because it's almost like an extended promo too, because the heel, if the guest is a heel, he'll be saying, oh yeah, well, here's where he's pulling my hair and here's where he's cheating and everything. And of course the announcer is going to be saying, well, I don't think that's the case. I don't listen to that. He's trying to cheat all through this match, and you're going to see. And that's the way they push the angles. I think it's kind of neat, actually. I don't think I've seen that on a TV show before for wrestling, showing, wouldn't be the entire match, but they would cut off a few minutes off the beginning, but show the kind of meat and potatoes the last couple minutes of a match. And that would be how the angle would get over on TV to the viewing TV audience.
Yeah, you bet. Chris coming in saying the TV studio was small, but the Cloverdale Fairgrounds, where they did their house shows, wasn't super big either. Again, Chris, do you have an approximate kind of how big those house shows were or anything like that? You know what? Again, I should probably shout it out. Vance Nevada's book probably has those statistics right in it. We should probably just open the Encyclopedia Canadian Wrestling there from our friend Vance Nevada and get that information directly from there. If you haven't picked up a copy, this is a free plug right now. Vance Nevada's Uncontrolled Chaos, wonderful encyclopedia about professional wrestling right here in our wonderful country. As hold on, capacity was like 700 to 750 maybe, but it would have been cramped. Okay, so I mean, that's, it's not massive in comparison to a lot of the territories that we've watched where they were doing 20,000 plus at some of these arenas and stuff like that, obviously. But I mean, still pretty reasonable considering that, there was a lot of professional wrestling, especially here in Canada, that, you didn't have large crowds. I mean, we're used to that here in Saskatchewan, Pop Smokes. We don't get a large draw for professional wrestling here in Saskatoon by any means, but the draw we do get is fucking insane. Like, it's the best of the best when it comes to the fans. And I'm sure Chris can attest to this, that the fans were probably 90% of the fun when you were there in a live capacity at these house shows.
For sure. And I think they did run some bigger ones than that too, because from what I could tell from my research, they did run the Pacific Coliseum sometimes, which is in Hastings, just off downtown. Hastings, I'm imagining, was a little nicer of a neighborhood back then. Not so nice nowadays. But they also ran the downtown Forum as well, which has a capacity of 15 grand. Now they wouldn't probably have been using all of that, but for some of their big shows, I imagine they might have expanded into that pretty nicely too.
Oh, for sure. Again, I can't imagine that you could afford Andre the Giant without putting him in a larger capacity stadium of some sort. I don't think Andre was doing a whole lot of touring for a crowd of 700 people by any means.
Certainly not.
But I would be amiss, Papa Smokes, if we got to the end of this and didn't talk about about a certain announcer that we haven't covered here. But 1 second, Chris comes in. Pacific Coliseum was the hockey arena for the Canucks. That was for the massive shows if the world champ was in town or Andre. Perfect, right there.
There you go.
Man, I feel like
Awesome.
Chris needed to be on this show with us, Papa Smokes. I'm loving it. Chris, thank you for joining in and adding to the depth of this program here today. I really do appreciate that. But yeah, I want to talk about Mr. Ed Carl, because he came into the fold and was on a lot of these calling the shots here, Papa Smokes. And while not my favorite announcer we've come across in all of these territories by any means, he was still up there. He called the shots the way he needed to call the shots. He was solid at what he did. He was a professional, and I have no qualms with him at all. I think he was good. He wasn't my favorite, but he was good.
Yeah, I think so too. And he had been a local radio DJ, and he took the job, I think, not knowing completely sure or being completely sure what it was. I think he'd done some sports beforehand, but he looked like he got right into it, because you can see in some of those clips he's quite invested in it, and that's what you want out of your guy. He's alert. He knows all the angles. He knows all the names. He ain't making any mistakes. And when you have to be the stick man, so to speak, the mean Gene Okerlund kind of that stands next to all the wrestlers with the microphone, that takes a certain decorum as well. You got to learn how to get some words out of the wrestler, maybe needle them a little bit, but not too much. You don't want to embarrass them and don't get them all pissed off, but it's a tightrope to walk, and he seems to do it quite well.
Yeah, quite well indeed. So yeah, thought at least needed to mention here tonight. He wasn't one that was going to go on about too much, but definitely deserving of that mention. I also want to bring up something here too, because we hear a lot of modern day wrestling fans talk about companies pioneering the idea of female referees and stuff like that. We know that the WWF as it is had a female referee in the 1980s, but on multiple occasions from what was available through these YouTube channels here, Papa Smoke, All-Star Wrestling had a female referee that did an excellent job at being there, being present, and not drawing away from the in-ring work, but at the same time not seeming like a pushover, like still was in an authoritative position as an official inside the squared circle.
Yeah, her name was Susie Tanner, and she was a longtime referee there. And I agree with you 100%, Munson. She wasn't put in that job because she was female. She's a nice-looking lady or whatever, but she wasn't put there for that purpose. There's no difference between the way she does the job and the way a male referee would do the job. I respect that greatly, and I get the feeling that it wasn't really a big deal back at that time to any of the fans or anybody. She came in, did the job perfectly, stayed out of the guy's way, and facilitated the finishes like any good referee should. Keep the wrestlers in the ring informed of times and any other information that they need to know, but without even reading that they had one of the early lady referees in wrestling. Didn't need to, because she's on a bunch of those matches that are on YouTube. Some of the only surviving footage, unfortunately, too. We haven't talked about this either, but unfortunately, this is part of the. It's prevalent in the territories that Back then, when they filmed on VHS tapes were blank tapes were $50 and $60, which of course in the 70s and 80s was how much money is that? $150 in our money or whatever. They were very
or
expensive.
more with the way the dollar is lately.
For sure. So what they did was, oh, well, we can just tape over these. So they just used the same tapes and taped over and taped over, taped over and taped over until those tapes got poor quality and started falling apart. And they bought a new one. And isn't that a shame? We lost so much history to that practice. And of course, I'm not moaning on about it. I understand the guys didn't have huge budgets to work with. They weren't thinking years ahead to history. A lot of these smaller companies thought, oh, no one's going to remember this shit. And plus, we're putting it on TV. People are watching it once. They're not going to want to watch it again. We've got a new show next week anyway. So there just wasn't that thought at that time to keep a lot of that footage, except in the bigger companies that could afford it. The Jim Crockett's and the Eddie Grahams and those guys were getting a lot of footage. But sad how much we lost. And that little bit that's on YouTube, there really isn't too much more than that as far as I can tell. Some fans taped it on their VCRs at home once people started getting home recording systems, and some of the talent, some of the wrestlers and refs had some tapes. That's it, man. Well, whatever's out there is out there, and that's it. Isn't that a shame?
It really is a damn shame. Bobby Stats is up in the house here. Papa Smokes, little Bobby Stats.
Hi,
How are
Bobby.
you doing? Hey, I know you reached out to me recently, and I haven't got back to you. I do apologize. I've had a bit of a busy week here, my friend, but I will get back to you again soon. I do apologize for that. Thank you, as always, for being supportive, being a friend, being another brother from another mother there, because we appreciate you, Bobby Stats. But Papa Smokes, I know we're kind of edging closer to the top of the hour, and we're going to make way for our good friends over at the Honor Ramble so that they can do some celebrating of Kimmy Sokol's birthday here. Want to know if there's anything else that you would like to talk about regarding the Vancouver territory or anything to see this out.
Well, sure. There's just a few things in my notes I wanted to remember to mention. I don't know if this is in any kind of order or anything, but we talked about some of the great guests that Vancouver had. We talked about them being on that touring circuit where guys might do Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Vancouver, Calgary, kind of a trip like that. And we had guys like Jack Briscoe, the Samoans, Tiger Jeet Singh, John Tolis, Andre the Giant, Iron Sheik, Jake Roberts, Sheep Herders, Jonathan Boyd, Piper, David Schultz, all those kind of guys. But not to be forgotten is some of the homegrown talent, the guys that came up in Vancouver. Just wanted to throw a few of the names out there. This is also a little bit of my fun, remembering all these names from when I was a kid. Guy Mitchell, Siegfried Stanky, the German, John Quinn, Dutch Savage, Kurt von Hess, another evil German, Moose Borowski, Moondog Moretti, there's a good name.
Yep.
Igor Volkov, an evil Russian, of course, and Eric Frolic, the famous barefoot wrestler. He just passed away last year. I saw a notice of that on Twitter, and I just thought, damn, my sister will be so sad. We used to watch those when we were little wee kids, all those matches. What a good time it was. There's a couple other things I wanted to mention.
Go for it.
Because it was historical. There's not only the early lady ref, but Vancouver did its part in pushing ladies wrestling as well as midget wrestling. But ladies wrestling, we've talked about Velvet McIntyre before. Yeah, there's a good mention right there. That's timely right now.
Yeah,
Buddy Wayne, the original Wayne, he was a Seattle guy. But wanted to just speak about Velvet McIntyre, one of the big ladies wrestling stars of the late 70s and 80s, was a Vancouver girl, got her start all around there, and of course feuded with Princess Victoria. They had a big feud. but then ended up coming out of that as a tag team. Then they went to WWF in the early 80s, and Velvet McIntyre and Princess Victoria are the first ever WWF Ladies Tag Team Champions. If anyone wants, there's a little trivia question. Could have put that in the trivia night, Munson.
You got to write that down for me, Papa Smokes. I like that. And people will have to recall this night here, this particular show, in order to get that one.
For sure. And just another couple things about the fans. Yeah. This always interests me, too. At those all-star wrestling house shows and also their TV tapings, they had the classic, an old lady that's been coming to the matches for 30 years or 40 years or whatever it was. Her name was Jessie, and they showed her almost every single broadcast, and she was vocal and wild, and she had seen all the various generations of wrestlers before that. There was no messing around with Jessie. She had her spot of honor there, and she never missed a show. Love those fans like that. Absolutely love them. And then did you notice, I had kind of noticed watching the tapings on YouTube, then I read about it as well. Did you notice the cheerleaders were always in the crowd? There's a group of cheerleaders. I don't know if they're from a school or a college or something like that, but they started all going in their cheerleader outfits, and they sometimes did little cheers, and they also cheered and heckled the heels and all that. But that was just another one of the weird fan things. It was always that group of 6 or 8 cheerleaders at every show. Isn't that wild?
Oh, for sure, it's wild, and you gotta love those types of fans. And I remember reading one of the comments during one of those shows where it was something like, and someone tagged the time. It was like 1 minute and something into the match, and Jessie is already out of the chair and screaming loudly. Like I just love those comments because again, it's a fan that you recognize and you have fun with, and you have such a good time. So
for sure.
But yeah, if anything else, or should we go take Bobby's last comment here before we sign off for the night?
Yeah, Bobby's comment. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So that was our trip through the territories, Vancouver All-Star Wrestling. Hope that you guys enjoyed that. And Bobby mentioned it. MLW announced that the C.W. Anderson and Brock Anderson will debut as a tag team in a match at MLW Summer of the Beasts on August the 29th. For all those that have rich blood and can afford to pay for the subscription fee from MLW, you know what? I mean, this is at least a sign of them trying to do something better. Like, again, it's a tag team coming in to debut as a tag team. Sounds like something that we were clamoring for quite a while with MLW there, Palm Smokes. And then they announced today they locked Janai Kai down on an actual contract as well too. So it feels like they're making some efforts there. We'll see how the things progress. Like we've said, we haven't given up hope on MLW, but with the new subscription service, it makes it tough because I just don't know if I have the will at the moment to shell out that money for the subscription service. But if they keep making moves like what Bobby's saying, and also with the signing of people like Janai Kai, I might be persuaded eventually.
No, that's fair enough for sure. But my interest is at a low point right now, but it's the door isn't closed. I've loved their stuff before. And if I start to read about or hear about some momentum starting or a few good moves, hey, I can be roped back in. I'm all down for some MLW. I always wish them success, as I do most of the big indie companies, because more competition and more wrestling out there is just better for the business overall.
You bet. They signed her. Good for them, because Gigi does great and bringing her in so far. So awesome news. But yeah, we got to make way here, of course, as my cat crawls all over me. But speaking of independence, I know it's not going to be far off. Hopefully that SPW's Southern Rumble will eventually be available on YouTube. Looking forward to it. I already know one of the big things that happened at the Southern Rumble, Papa Smokes. I don't know if you've caught glimpses on social media yet, but oh man, were they not lying when they told me behind the scenes that they had something interesting planned for the Southern Rumble?
Okay, well, I follow them and a few of the guys as well, but I'm honestly kind of trying not to see that. I
Yeah.
saw that they were doing a countdown of great moments from that show in the past, and
Yeah.
I don't even want to see that yet until I see this latest show because
Oh, for sure.
one of my favorite indie companies by a long shot.
Oh, and you know what? I can't wait to see your reaction to what ends up going down here.
Oh man,
Without I'm not going to give any more away. They definitely delivered on the fact that they told me they had some interesting plans in mind for the Southern Rumble. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we also got to double check in with Ed. I know that Chaotic had another show coming up, and maybe we can get Ed Fries on the show here, do a review of the latest Chaotic Wrestling. I'd love to do that. We know PPW's right around the corner, so we're going to have our preview PPW show coming up probably a week before September 14th there, or right around, or maybe just a few days before that, so that we can preview the show for you. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime and in between time, we're going to spend a little extra money and put the most expensive ticker on the planet on the screen. Pop Smokes, tell them where they can find you.
All right, Munson, I can always be found in Elon Musk's free speech wonderland, also known as X. I am at smokes_papa. I'm also on the new look Twitch at papa_smokes_.
There you go. That's Pop Smokes. And for myself, Bobby Munson, over on that free speech wonderland the Pop Smokes talks so highly about, I'm real Bobby Munson. Instagram and Threads at Video Bros SK, and over on that new look Twitch, it's at Video Bro_Bobby Munson. As for what I got coming up, I haven't released them just yet, but I got a couple of new movie reviews coming out for you guys. I saw Borderlands, and Cuckoo was another movie I just watched. So those coming out very, very shortly here for you. You can currently check out some of my music reacts and album reviews that are on the channel doing really well for themselves. And then you can catch me next year Sunday with Mark Robson talking all things football, pro wrestling, and all sorts of other fun stuff on Point of View. Myself, Bob Smokes, if you like what we do here, you might also like to hear us on commentary. Check on over us. Twisted my word. Check us out over on Prairie Pro Wrestling YouTube channel every Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. Saskatchewan time, 3 p.m. on the East Coast for a new wrestling match where we are your commentary team. But as for OLE, where we are right now, you might be watching on the Video Bros Network on YouTube or OLE. What we want you to do is go ahead and click subscribe, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. Papa Smokes and I love comments. We'll reply to your comments and get back to you as soon as possible. But make way for the Honor Ramble there coming up. So from myself and from Papa Smokes, thank you for joining us here on Ring Respect Radio, and we'll see you next Thursday.